These are cute. I like them.
Oh, I see that. Okay. Ray, you want me to dive in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all and meet you all. I don't know if I met everyone. I'm Richard Capone, the CEO of Let's Go Learn. And this is Alicia Atkinson, who is your customer success specialist.
I've met lots of you.
Yeah, you should have met hopefully most of you, and if not, then you should meet her. All right, so today we've got a few things we want to go over. I'll just go through the agenda real quickly. So first, I'm just going to review a couple specs about Adam. I think we're going to have more of an emphasis on math today. And so I'm just going to review some of the specs. I think it's always good to look at it just because we forget, right? You're working with it for a long time, and then you realize, oh, wow, it does X or it does Y. So I'll do a little refresher. We're going to look at some data, and then we're going to look at a couple major significant reports. One will be the average skills gap report, and we'll talk about how to use that for PLCs. And then we'll look at some of the math edge reports as well. Okay, and then we'll have a little discussion. So it's really, we're not going to try to cover too much. We'll cover just some, sort of a small number of things. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Any burning questions that you want to get off your chest now? 'Cause I know sometimes someone has something that just keeps them antsy before they could, settle in. Okay, no? All right, perfect. All right, so let's start off. So some specs. I'm going to go over DORA and Adam. Just a reminder, our assessments are criterion referenced. They are vertically scaled. Sometimes that terms come up. Nowadays it's a good term to know because sometimes people ask, can I use this over different grade ranges? So because it's a criterion reference assessment, that means when I look at somebody who's in kindergarten, first, second, third, I can compare the grades and they're scaled. It's not like a benchmark test. If you take a benchmark test, a second grade benchmark and a third grade benchmark, you can't always compare the scores because you're covering different material, right? So just want to point that out. DORA is 7 measures, Adam is 44 measures, right? So we're looking at, those are a number of subtests. Within each of those, we're finding a scope and sequence of skills, we're finding instructional points within those subtests. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And that's why, when you look at 7 measure versus 44 measure, that's why it's really a test assessment for your teachers, right? If it was only one measure, like a Lexile or a quantile or a scaled score, that's not enough for teachers to make decisions. So we're getting really nitty gritty. The other thing is it is computer adaptive, don't forget that, and so that means that it does adjust to the students. Now, there's a lot of computer adaptive. The CAASPP, the SBAC is computer adaptive, but we're computer adaptive at the set level. So if someone ever asked, when it says, Richard can use place value with decimals, it's not a single item, it's a set of items. If it says, Alicia knows her short vowels, the student got 10 items on short vowels. So everything in these two assessments work on a set level. Now, sometimes shorter assessments will say the student does it, but they really didn't do 10 items or 5 items or 3 items, they did maybe 1 item. So that's the difference with Adam and DORA, is we designed it to be at the instructional level, to tell teachers what can and cannot the student do. Does that make sense? I feel like that's important to point out because especially when you talk to teachers, they may say, well, the Adam's a little longer, it's a longer assessment, and then why are we using it if it's that long? And you have to say, well, they're testing skills at a set. If I only get 1 question on a place value, you don't know if I really know it or not, right? All right.
I have a question real quick, Richard.
Yes.
So, let's say a student's mastered a set. The next time they take that assessment, do they take those same ones again?
So the next time they take the assessment, in theory, it'll actually start at the set above it. Okay. So in the case of place value, if I got 10s and 100s correct, the next time I take the assessment, it'll probably put me at thousands place value. So we'll notch it up.
But if you've mastered, then it just does the highest.
Yeah.
Just the highest set, just that one. And if you get it right, then you move on.
Okay.
Now, one thing we are doing, we're doing a major overhaul by January in the adaptive logic of Adam. So if a student has mastery of place value decimals like 2 times in a row, then it's going to start turning that section off. So then it'll say, hey, they mastered place value, which you would expect of a 6th grader or 7th grader. So we're turning that subtest off. So that's going to save some time too. So we're trying to improve the adaptive logic. All right, again, the interfaces are based on the grade level of the student, so different maturity levels. Both assessments are available in Spanish and English. Right, we do have DORA Spanish, but that's a separate, we're testing native Spanish speaking. ADAM is also available in Spanish. Now it's really mainly for maybe students who are brand new to English. Their English is very low, so you want to test them in Spanish. But if once someone has competency in both languages, then if you start doing Spanish, they may not know what a meter is in Spanish, so then it becomes a language issue. So just be aware, you have to sort of be a little thoughtful about which one you use.
Yeah, I always recommend if you have, if their instruction in math has been in Spanish, then test them in Spanish. But if their instruction has been in English and they speak Spanish at home, test them in English, because the terminology, I mean, I talk to my kid about math all the time, but I don't necessarily use all the terms. I'm more asking him what he did. I'm not instructing him, so that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get those. I mean, some of them will, but you're not going to get the terminology from your day-to-day speaking at home.
Any other languages available?
No, that's it so far. Yeah. Maybe once we catch up in terms of things to do, then we could try to do some other languages. But all right, the next thing is we have 2 new reports, and they're going to release. The ADAM report's actually ready now, but the DORA report will be ready in a week to 2 weeks, and we're going to turn it on for your whole district. It's an IEP, a special ed version of ADAM and DORA. So when you go to the reports on students, right now it says parent, teacher, summary. It'll say special education. Now what that report is, it's really powerful. Because right now, if you want to write an IEP for somebody on ADAM, you get a 15-page report, and it says Richard is working on decimal place value, Richard can multiply fractions. So what it does, it allows you to say, I want to target numbers and operations. You target it, and then you say it'll concatenate all those lines into one paragraph. So you can copy and paste and adjust. Obviously, you're not just copying and pasting, but then, so it's going to make writing IEPs really easy. And you could toggle between present level and instructional level. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with writing IEPs, but you have to do the PLAF, which is what is the present level, academic level of the student. And so it's allowing you to mine the data to write really good IEPs.
Are you guys putting together like a job aid so we could send that out to our resource teachers, or is there?
You mean like a little announcement on it? Or I'm sorry.
Like a tip sheet?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have a couple videos too. Yeah, so like I said, it's sort of exciting because we already have some people who are beta testing using it, and then DORA will be the same thing. Now DORA is a little more friendly for IEPs already because it's not such a long report, but ADAM, 17 pages trying to extract data out of it is cumbersome, so this allows you to do it very easily. And so it's meant in a sense, it's not like a report, it's a tool to mine the data as the teacher is deciding what am I working on with this student. Right? We're going to work on numbers and operations, or our goal is going to be on measurement. Then they select it and they grab the data. So really important thing to point out, especially in this day and age with lawsuits and stuff like that, it's really important to have those present levels defined. All right, the last piece is formative assessment. That is something that we've talked before about, but that is something that'll be optional. The district will have to think about it, but eventually it'll allow you to break apart all the subtests. So the 44 subtests, the 7 subtests of DORA, you could test individually. And so that's another piece that's launching at the same time, okay? All right. Quickly, just reminding you, high correlation between DORA and ADAM, 0.83, 0.85. It doesn't mean that if a student's ADAM score goes up, they're automatically going to be at another performance level on CAASPP, because the CAASPP has big jumps, right? You actually have to go up a lot in order to go up a performance level. But we do know there's a very, very good correlation. So that's another thing just to keep in mind in case teachers sometimes wonder, why are we doing this, or or is this data useful? We have really, really high correlations.
And WS is the weighted score, correct?
Yeah, that's the weighted score. So the DORA weighted score. So for correlating, we have to use our summative score, which is the weighted score. But the teachers are going to be using comprehension, phonics, sight words, and everything else. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to log in All right, so I'm logged in as a principal account. And has everyone used your principal account before? Logged in? Okay, if some of you haven't, then Alicia can help you. Or if you have somebody else you want to have it at your school, lead teacher, they can have a principal account as well. It doesn't have to be just you. And we can give them their own account. They don't need to share with you. So the first thing is over here on the far right. I thought this is sort of an interesting to look at. This shows all the schools' use of Edge. And this is just last week. Okay, so don't worry if your school's low. Sometimes, this is a 1 week snapshot.
Get you.
Yeah. So if we click on details, we see, let's see here. You can see it's the ranking by how many number of lessons, gross number of lessons performed at that school, and another one is the average number per student. So really this is the one you're going to look at, because obviously if you have a school of 300 versus 500, it's going to be different. And so right there, 3.6 lessons per student, Payne at 3.26, and so on and so forth. I think we're going to add another column in there too for, I think there's one other column we're adding there. Yeah, something per student, or something like that. Anyway, it'll change. But this is just a quick way to sort of keep yourself on track. Just log in, look at it. You can create more detailed reports if you want, where you can look at this by teacher. So if you want to see teacher in class, you can see how many students are doing it and how many lessons or how much time on task.
If you want a report emailed to you every week by teacher, just let me know and I'll set that up for you. So send me an email and I will set up the report that will let you know how, set your goal, like we want them to be using half an hour a week or an hour a week, and then it'll let you know which teachers have met those goals and on average how many lessons the students do.
Okay. So one other thing I want to point out is this is brand new here on the left. When you go to the home, it says on-demand courses. Everyone has that button in their account, even the teacher. So if you have a brand new teacher who just came into the school district, or they're somebody who's suddenly now using Let's Go Learn and they didn't before, that's a 30-minute on-demand course where it takes them through the whole system and it actually gives them quiz questions to verify that they understand the system. So it's not just watching a 30-minute webinar, where you basically tune out, you're on your phone, and then you don't retain any of it afterwards. We've all done that. This one will do short 5-minute video, and then it says, where do you log in and Let's Go Learn to do X, Y, Z. So just be aware of that. That's a really good tool. We're trying to move towards on-demand courses, so that way people retain what they're learning a little more easily. Okay? All right, so the next thing I want to go into is the average skills gap report. And I think some of you've all jumped into it, but I actually want to go through and we'll look at your district information. We could look at a site and actually show you how we could drill down and maybe lead a PLC in analyzing their data. Okay, does that sound good to you guys? Mm-hmm. Okay. So from here, I'm logged in as a principal account. I go to the data portal. Let's see here. I'm going to go under reports, and I apologize. I would have a tip sheet for this, but I live in Northern California, so with all the fires, we had no power this past week, so I didn't print those out. But we can email them to you, the tip sheet that'll show you exactly how to get to this report. So it's right here is the average skills gap report, right? This is probably the best report for PLCs. I'm going to select it. And right now, I'm just going to select all schools. So this is what's interesting. Now, this is meant to drill down to the 44 subtests, right? Before, you guys have been looking at performance bands, but really at the PLC level, you want them to look at the subtest level. So you want them to drill down to the 44 subtests. So what I'm going to pick out is I'm going to pick out measurement, because I think a lot of times we realize the numbers in operations could be low, and we are working on that. But measurement is an interesting one because of the connection to language. And so I think this is not a bad place for your teams to examine. And so I'm going to select measurement. And normally I would put in a date range. So I'm just going to put in the first testing window, 8/15, right?
Yeah.
And then I think you guys finished testing like end of October? Wait, we're in October.
Put today's date. I just put today's date.
Okay. All right. And now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at 3rd grade. 4th grade? Okay. Take a look at 4th grade. Begin. So you got to look at this at 1 grade at a time. Okay. So now what we're looking at is the average gap for 4th graders across the entire district. We can drill this down to 1 school at a time. And it says in money, it's negative 0.81 times negative 0.83, temperature negative 1.41, length, weight, capacity. All of them are about a year behind, if not a little bit more, right? But there are not a lot of skills there. And the reason why I point out measurement is because by 4th grade, you're doing a lot of word problems, right? And so it's really common, temperature, it's really common talking about capacity, you know, gallons of milk, right? And so I think this language part is a huge, you know, it's friction on the student's ability to do math. Just sort of, it pulls them down, even though they may know some of those calculations. And so what I want to show you is how to look at it. So let's just start off something that's money. So we're a 4th grader, so saying your average gap is 0.81 years. So let's, and I think Ray, you've passed out that skill sheet that shows lists all the pieces, right? But I'll show you where it's at. It's actually called, oops, Knowledge Base Article 711. I'd write that down, Knowledge Base Article 711. And I'm gonna actually, I'll show you here. When we're in here, if you go to Knowledge Base, you're logged into your account, you go to Knowledge Base at the very top, and you could type it descriptively, like you could write out Atom skills list and find it, but I'm going to just put 711. And here's this descriptor, this PDF file. So when I open this up, this lists every single skill out of the 44 subtests of Atom, and it shows you the order that you teach things. So this is what your PLCs need to have. They need to have a copy of this with them, and that way they can reference it. So let me show you about money. So we were looking, I'll scroll down to money. It does.
How did you get there? How'd you get there?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, so I went to the article 711, and it's,
Right, but how did you get to that?
Yeah, go back to
sorry.
Well, you were right on the page.
Sorry.
Yeah, you just went.
Got their attention. Under help.
Yeah, knowledge base, right there.
Under help?
Under help, it says knowledge base. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, help, knowledge base. Or you can always go, let's go learn knowledge base. It's on our website. But just remember, knowledge base, right? Yeah. We could email you this PDF file too. But you know how it is. You have a PDF file, it gets lost, and then,
No, I think it's good that we have it
Yeah.
all there because that's how we can link it to our.
yeah. No, I know too, is anytime you have PDF, it gets lost, right? I mean, I have PDFs emailed to me all the time, and then I don't know where they are.
Monitor, it looks like that. I don't know why it does it. So the navigation's not necessarily the same.
Search Article 711.
Okay. So once you have this PDF in hand, yeah, this is a really, really important one. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking at these very specific skills, right? Now when you look at money,
Richard, and these are all the standards for 4th grade in math? This particular PDF?
this PDF is all K7. It's everything. It's everything, right? Because part of the problem is we're looking at 4th graders, but money is up. Look right there, it says it's kindergarten. It says right there, money is only 2 skills in our subtest. Money recognition and money values. So recognition, quarter, dime, nickel. And then value is a picture of a dollar with a quarter and a dime. And what is that? $1.35, right? So it's really, really, some of it's very basic. So it tells you right there that 1 is a 0.9, which means that it's a late kindergarten standard. Number 2, the second skill taught is 2.9. It's taught in 2nd grade, right? So those 2 skills are really, really simple, but they've just, they brought down those fourth graders. So if on average I have a negative gap, that means probably half of my kids don't know that. The other one too, I think it was time. Let's see, what was the other one? Time. Let's look at temperature. Was one that's really low. And I think that's really common to have temperature questions in fourth grade, right? The temperature was 80 degrees, and then 40 degrees, 50 degrees, and having kids look at it in a chart. But if they get very confused and they don't know what a degree is, and then it's just going to go right over their head. So some of this is really just conceptual. Look at this. Temperature. Okay, so temperature, we have a gap of 1.4 years before the fourth graders.
Yeah.
So that means, most of them are behind. Sorry. Okay, so I zoom in here, and look at this.
Before you go further.
Yeah.
Think about, even on language arts, on CAASPP, a lot of it is science-based questions. So if your kids don't know temperature, there's also a high chance that they're not going to be able to do whatever's being asked of them on the language arts section either.
Yeah.
So those are how some of the connections for the two tests too.
See, and I feel like this is a skill that somebody could teach, in a very short period of time, but it needs to be refreshed because they didn't learn it originally. Yes?
When you look at that document, is it possible to highlight the ones that are most critical in order to hit the gap, but then also to move on? Because if they are 1.4 years behind, there's that teacher anxiety of not only do I have to do my 5th grade or 6th grade, I've got to now cover that 1.4 years.
Yeah. So,
Can I answer that as a former math teacher?
sure.
In a diagnostic, the reason they're sequenced that way is when you take all the possible things that they have to teach, those are the most critical.
Okay.
So if you skip 2, you're going to pay for it somewhere else.
Got it.
Yeah. But I bring this up just because I think because you have a lot of EL students, or even if they're not, maybe they're native, but they have EL households, it gets overlooked, I think, measurement. And we see that there's a big gap. And then we're working on numeracy, we're working on, concepts like that. But even at the 4th grade level, what happens is we're working on a lot of conceptual stuff at 4th grade level, but we don't have time to go back. So look at this. Temperature is 2 concepts. One is just, what is temperature? And the second one is reading a thermometer. That's all it is. Right? Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then actually having a picture of a thermometer and reading it. Think about it, a lot of students don't have thermometers around, right?
Digital now.
Yeah. But so I think it could be something like, I just know it's it's warm today. It's maybe they have a concept.
Yeah, and that's where the concept comes in.
Yeah.
Like, is this hot or cold?
Yeah, and then it is metric, Celsius, and Fahrenheit, which we need both, right? So that can get confusing too to students. But anyway, that's it. If you had a couple refreshers on that, then suddenly, that gap can go away. Yes.
I've been playing around with some of the reports. And so if we're looking at, say, a 2nd grader, and maybe one of the strands hasn't been addressed, like say volume for a 2nd
Sure.
grader. So would that would just be 0 because that's where they're out and they haven't been
Yes.
exposed to it?
So this is, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if it was temperature, it'll say less than 2 by their name, or their score will be less than 2 because it's less than 2nd grade level. So it won't be a 0 because they haven't learned it yet. It hasn't been presented. It tells you at what grade does the concept start. So, for example, length would say 0 because it would say less than 0 because it starts at kindergarten. But
Actually, we can show one.
Yeah.
Look at capacity and volume. It's a good one.
Yeah. So capacity would say less than 2. So the score is whatever the lowest score is. If they have 0, then it just says less than that grade level.
We do that because when you're dealing with grades, you get this weird gap. If somebody is less than 2, or if they don't have concept and it's something they learn in their second grade, do you suddenly go from a 0 score to a 2? No, you really went from 2.0 to 2.5. So there are some, but here's another thing, is this is why your PLCs need to look at it, because they may say, you know what, we don't teach that yet. Or we have a slightly different order that we teach
And that's okay,
capacity.
it's just being aware, right?
Yeah, because ours, we do try to do it based on standards, but sometimes standards don't always make everything clear. They just say, by the end of 3rd grade, you're supposed to know these things, and they don't always define when. So, and there's a few things, like I know, even Pythagorean theorem, we technically say it's 7th, but I think it's more 8th. So there's some slight discrepancies. But then, like I said, your PLC teams would be able to sort of figure that out.
So once again, to kind of clearly define this graph for us, the going downward box just means this is the gap, this is how far. So
This
the
is the gap,
bigger
yeah.
the box, the longer the box, the bigger
Yeah.
the problem.
Technically, we have a double negative going on in here, right? I mean, if you say
So when you
gap
see
is-
it on the other side flipping up, that means that's a
Yes.
positive.
They're advanced, yeah.
That they're
I was
above grade
confused the
level.
first
They're-
time. I was-
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are a couple of places where you're going
When
to
you
see
see it in the
above
sky.
grade level, and that's usually going to be where that skill is just been taught, and so they, some of the kids know it, and it's above grade level. So you're usually going to see that on the further end, because the skill, it goes from the lowest skill to the highest skill. So you'll usually see that over here
So if you're at 0, the kid's at grade level.
at grade level.
Yeah.
The average student in your class would be at grade level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now here's a little weird thing about math, okay? Technically, 3.8 on Adam, the total score, 3.8 correlates to proficiency on the CAASPP. Okay, it makes sense. End of year, 3rd grade is proficiency. 4th grade, it's 4.5. 5th grade, it's 5.1. 6th grade, proficiency is 5.8. Okay, so isn't this weird, right? Our grade level scores are determined by Common Core, but proficiency on the CAASPP at 6th grade is a year below. That's because everyone is so low that the state can't fail everyone. So technically,
Give us
right?
the numbers again.
So-
Yeah, I have a chart, but I'm guessing from, yeah. But I mean, not to say that you don't want to do this, because the problem is if you want students to be proficient, to be able to do physics, to be able to do whatever they want, right? They need to have this knowledge. And it's a foundational knowledge. If you don't have it, you can't build on it. Okay, so the numbers are, this is approximate, I'm just doing from memory. 3rd grade proficiency is about a 3.8. 4th grade proficiency is about a 4.5. 5th grade proficiency is about 5.2. 6th grade proficiency is about 3.8. 5.8, sorry. 5.8, yeah. Okay? So it starts inching
So
down.
just so you think about what, okay, we haven't gotten science test scores back, right? Because you take it 1 year, they develop the cut scores, so they're not going to be clean cut. Because those cut scores are somewhat determined on how the state performed.
Yeah, and that's why they're norm reference.
Yeah,
They're norm reference.
Correct.
And they're just saying, and their idea of proficiency is sort of the upper echelon. But I mean, so the thing is you're gonna, I guess what I'm saying is, don't feel completely bad. You're gonna have a lot of gaps at the 6th and 7th grade, right? But we wanna reduce those gaps. We wanna do the best we can, because we know the students need that knowledge, right? It helps them. Now, after we go over this, we're gonna talk about EDGE. EDGE is a great tool. And and that's a way for us to fill those gaps. An automated way and a teacher assignment. So on a positive level, even though we're having this data, you guys are armed now with a tool to help you remediate. So we'll talk about that. Let's look at, actually, does someone want to pick one of your schools? We'll drill down here. What's your school?
Monte Vista.
Monte Vista. Okay, so let's look at length for Monte Vista. Okay, so Okay, so 81 fourth graders just tested. Your gap, your average gap in length is 1 year.
Oh, that's so easy.
With the district was 1.3, so it's a little lower. So let's take a look at that. So fourth graders, let's look at that document. Let's see, length right here. So that means they're about, on average, at about a...
Between 2.9 and 2.9.
Yeah, they're right in between. So, yeah, it gets a little confusing. I mean, so we already had vocabulary measuring length by object, so that's concept number line. So now we're getting into customary and metric concepts of length. So, inch, meter, centimeter, mile, right? Those are all definitional. Those are terms, right? And then length, also that one's customary and metric units. So anyways, you sort of see, and then you're going up, next thing they'll be learning is what they will learn about converting units of length. But of course, they're lower, so they don't even have the concepts down. Some of them are getting the concepts and definitions mixed up. But some of that will be review when they go into the actual conversion. So that's actually good. So you may say, okay, maybe when we do that, maybe we assign a Khan Academy lesson that just, or an EDGE lesson that just covers the units, what they are. So that could be a homework, something you do for scaffolding, right? So before they actually work on those unit lessons, they get a little pre-work. That way, they're just, when the teacher's starting to convert things, they're not saying centimeter, meter, this gives them a little bit extra help. And so I would say, because on average all your fourth graders are 1 year behind, that would be a good thing to do a little pre-work on. Does that make sense, how I went through that process? Yeah.
Sorry, question.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So when you went through the process, you were looking at your section of length. And I know that, I mean, like for instance, how do I know that the problem is just somewhere?
Sure, so right now for fourth graders, we're at 4.0, 4.1.
Okay.
And I just subtracted 1, because the beginning of the year is 4.1. Middle of the year, the gap is calculated based on 4.5. So you have to know what time of year you're looking at. So we're at 4.0, 4.1,
Okay.
minus 1, so 3.1. So and there actually is none, right? And we jumped. There's a second grade and there's a 1/3 grade. So it's really right, you're right.
Right in those two, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. How would you put this into practice on your campus?
Usually, I would look at the average skills report. However, looking at this, because sometimes they see what the average skill is and they don't understand the different strands underneath. So, like I looked at 6th grade data. So then there they can see which specific area under data is, like I saw outcome is 2.28 under. So then that way they can see where do I need to target some of those mini lessons or some of those the instruction.
So what guidance would you give your teachers in terms of how to actually do it? What would that look like?
In terms of the protocol, using the DORA system?
So the data's done.
Okay.
So the data's done. Let's say we're at 4.5 and we just took a test. And our kids are still 1 year behind. So I go down to about 3.5 through here, and I realize that if my average kid is here, the majority of kids already know this. There might be a handful that don't. But the average kid in my class doesn't know this, doesn't know this, doesn't know this, doesn't know this, and doesn't know that, because we're at 4.5. What process would you take your teachers through? So I'll yeah,
I was thinking of the 4 R's as a protocol, and the response would then be looking at this data specifically.
I agree, but let's say we move past
That's that.
we move past the day reflection, because we talked about it. Now what?
So the now what will be actually working with teachers to identify. So we have a target of this is what we want to meet. Defining of so how many weeks, by when do we want to go back and look and see? Let's agree on when and how we will be teaching this. Examples, if I'm doing my small group instruction while my students are working on the program, I'm gonna be pulling students, I'm gonna do a full, identify whether it's gonna be for everyone, and which ones am I going to pull, and then giving a timeline. I'm thinking that would be the next steps.
So-
But you have to get teachers to plan it with you, because you can't just tell them to do it.
Carol? Yeah, I agree.
What's on the side here is what's important for the teachers to know.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, right
So
there.
then they look at those, and that's what's going to guide it into what the lessons have to be.
So let's say you gave the assessment today, and we're 4.5, let's say still. Most teachers, unless you're breaking the curriculum apart and embedding measurement and geometry into the union, like, oh, that comes later, and it's realistic. You have the field trip, and you have this, and you have that, and it never got taught. However, the problem is that most integrated problems in CAASPP are going to contain this information. So I would suggest having teachers go back and actually look at what are skills similar to this, because if your average kid doesn't know this, they automatically know that when I get to that in my instruction, I have to start off with remediation before I teach the grade level standard. So they already have a point of confusion, actually, because if you're starting way up here and the kids are down here, the moment you open your mouth way up here, you've created the point of confusion, because I still don't know what a centimeter is.
Yeah.
So it kind of, you can also look at it as if you teach a unit on measurement and geometry in January, the month of November and December, your little mini lessons, your little warm-ups, your little activities, maybe you're even integrating some of this, into that, or maybe you're just specifically teaching little mini lessons, in addition to what you're teaching all through. But I think this is what gets us, is that we don't know where they are, but this told us the average kid doesn't know what doesn't know. The average kid is a big number.
So here's another piece. Okay, and this is where we're starting to jump into EDGE, right? So this is one way to operationalize this. I do really feel like in math, we have to have allocated personalized learning time. So I'm not sure, it varies. How many of you are doing station learning in math? I've seen some schools, especially middle schools, where they say, well, you know what? It's so hard to get enough personalized learning time. I've seen some schools actually take 5 minutes out of every period and add a 7th period or a 6th period, however you work, and they actually created a personalized learning period. So kids can work on whatever they want, ELA, math, or maybe if some students are advanced, they're doing student council advisory. I don't know, but it depends. But they were trying to logistically help teachers get more time. Now, I think in elementary, you have to culturally get some kind of personalized learning time, and then I'll show you later how we can prioritize into tiers. There's high priority students, you need the most personalized learning, medium, and then lower, right? So to some extent, when you have students who are low on so many levels, we need to get more personalized learning time. And then of course, the other piece here is if we have personalized learning time, a certain portion for everyone could be allocated to a review. We're going to be working on this next week, so everyone during their 15 or 20-minute session, they need to do the review lessons. Now, you can actually, I don't know if you guys know, we have an assignment tool. So in the assignment tool, you can queue up any EDGE lesson, any con lesson, or any URL. You can make templates for your school. If your PLC say, hey, no one knows what temperature, they don't know what money is, and they don't know what basic units. You can create 4th grade review, 4th grade Q1 review, 4th grade Q2 review, and you could actually put a few lessons in them, and really it's like about maybe 15, 40, whatever minutes, and then they can actually say all 4th grade teachers need to do this. It's a Q1 review. So you can create templates based on your data reviews. Now that's something that Alicia can meet with a PLC team and roll up the sleeves and actually do it and show you how to do it once they know how to do one. But anyway, it's sort of interesting. I mean, so we're trying to put all these tools in here, and I think now that you guys are hitting year 2, 3, these are some more advanced techniques we can do.
Well, and also our middle schools, the shadow classes, if they know this is coming up in a unit, they can set those customized skill reviews in EDGE and do that in the math skills classes too.
Yeah.
So that way it's very targeted to the instruction that's coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah. And it's hard because, in theory, students are all over the place. But I think if you start with little mini steps, what can we do? And then people start getting better at it. On one level, students are really, really far below, probably they need to rely on some more automated instruction. Because the automated instruction, maybe the way EDGE works, it hits their lowest skills first. So we see a lot of 4th and 5th graders who actually are getting kindergarten and 1st grade lessons, because some of those are definitional, forward, backwards, yeah.
Left, right.
Left.
The left, right is huge. We get 8th graders who get that left, right lesson all the time.
Yeah.
My niece learned to drive left.
All right, so I'm just gonna flip through a couple other ones, just so we look at numbers strand here, just so you can start getting some ideas.
While he's pulling that up, because some of you weren't here
So
when
you
we
got
did
some
this.
above.
So the reason we actually went with EDGE is we had a pilot year at Payne for 4th, 5th, and 6th. The year they piloted
It was 3rd, 4th,
EDGE,
and 3rd, 4th, 5th, and
3rd,
6th.
4th, 5th, and 6th. The year they piloted EDGE and they did rotations in their classroom, they had the largest math growth of any school in the district. So we've already demonstrated with our kids that it works. And let's be realistic, Payne, to have the largest math growth in the district, because historically they've been the lowest school in the district, one of them. Says a lot, but it's about that ongoing, data reflection time. How are we going to incorporate this? Do we need to create a mini block for all of our 4th graders to address these specific skills at this specific time of year? And
wait 1 minute,
as you
because they're
said,
gonna
there's a
show up in
resource that will
edit.
come out and help explain to your teachers.
All right, I just flipping real quickly to your school for numbers and operations. You see, look, numbers is like number recognition all the way up to rounding, commas, right? They're above grade level. Place value, they're starting to get a little bit below. And place value is a little bit definitional, right? And then other ones are okay. Fractions, of course, is a big one. Fractions is a tough one because it says 1.4, but the students are actually scattered, right? Because the one thing we can't see in this measure is how clustered are they or how spread are they, right? So I just know from experience, fractions, your whole class is like this. You got some who don't even know what a numerator or denominator is. Some students are a little bit more advanced, and then everything in between. So that actually lends itself to more personalized learning because it's so spread out. Let me just look at a different grade here.
The other thing with place value is it makes a really big difference on the, especially for 3rd grade. If they don't know place value, they really struggle on the CAASPP because it plays into so much of the other skills.
Now I'm guessing here, this is 5th grade. We want to show you place value. -0.48, okay, a little bit. But look at 5th grade, and this is one where it's sort of really interesting. By 6th grade, sorry. 5th grade, now we're looking at 6th grade. Now look at 6th grade. Suddenly how it jumps to 1.07, okay? This one is very discrete. I know exactly what that is. Okay, what is it? Does someone know? You want to say it?
No, she's thinking something
Okay,
else.
it's decimal place value. Because we learn decimal place value at the end of 5th grade. So going into 6th grade, a lot of your students don't know it. They're not able to master it. It's different, right? Place value, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, or whatever it is, and suddenly decimal, you're going opposite directions, tens, hundreds, it's weird. You add a TH to the end of it. Tenths, hundreds, and you got to count. Okay, wait, one. I still count the number of those over there because I get confused. So that's that. That's a discrete, targetable lesson that we tease out by looking at the 5th grade, 6th grade, and having intimate knowledge of this spreadsheet right here. So.
And point out fractions, just because I always like to point out the fractions one.
Yeah.
fractions just coverage, there's so many
Yeah.
skills in
So,
fractions.
so you see place value here, it starts off 1, hundredths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, expanded form, 10,000s, 100,000s, decimals. Boom, that's the little culprit right there.
Can we go to that same grade level or that same area and go to first grade? So look at this one real quick.
Oh, is this what, that's what you wanted?
That's fine. But our kindergarten teachers are doing something well with fractions
Concept, yeah.
concept. So it's not starting there. Our kids know more entering first grade than what might be expected.
Yeah.
Subtracting whole numbers, comparing and ordering, place value. Oh, no, that's below, I can't see, okay.
Yeah.
But it
It's a
tells
small
you,
amount.
what does kindergarten need to work on? Because they started first grade not knowing this. So kindergarten teachers, I've heard constantly, believe me, it's like they twist my ear and stick a dagger through my heart if they could. They don't want to do DORA and Adam. It's too much for the kids. They can't use the device. But when are we going to catch them? Because we have no information of when we're going to catch them now. So at the second administration of both of these assessments, kindergarten needs to have a conversation about, these are the skills that they started first grade not knowing. Where are those in your curriculum? Let's monitor them as we move forward. Because we have such a large gap in math. If we don't target it early on, it's like the fire hose for the kid trying to catch up.
Yeah.
They almost can't. I mean, theoretically, we know the skills, right? But when you're in 6th grade and you have a list of skills that you don't know, unless you're dedicating half of your day to math, which isn't going to happen, they're not going to catch up. So that's the point of testing earlier. Because, and I would really emphasize with your kinder teachers this year, this data for their data analysis. Like, if this is where last year's left and this is where we are now, where do we go? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so Alicia's handing out this handout. It gives you one student. It's a real student, but I wanted to show you just to look at her data. And she started off the year, this is from last year, 6th grader, and she started off with a score of 5.12. So she's about a year behind. And then at the end of the year, she ended up at, I can't read that, 6.59.
Sorry, I have to steal yours. You can.
Oh, yeah, okay. 6.59. But what's interesting about it is, you'll see, look at her at the bottom, it shows you the edge lessons she was assigned. Length, temperature, triangles. You see what I'm saying? And then she did, I think, a total of 21 hours of edge. And in 21 hours, with her classroom instruction, she actually gained like a year and a half, right? So it's interesting because it's not everyone, some students can get up very fast if it's just like very specific gaps. And this is a good example to look at.
And actually, I want to make a point on that. So when I was at Crayons, one of the teachers asked me, they said, so you're expecting them to make more than a year's growth in a year. And it depends on the grade. For 7th grade, that's really hard because they are so far behind that every little thing, and there's so much that they're expected to learn in that year. But at 4th grade, 3rd grade, it is possible for them to make more than a year gain if they're targeting the right lessons and they have the right amount of edge usage. So there really is that potential for the students to use that detailed information.
So I know we don't have a lot more time, so I'm going to jump into a report that's going to be a very, very useful report for you. The first one, we were showing you the average skills gap. The next one is a course, current course usage, which is the second page of your handout. But I want to just point out one thing here is, now this isn't your district. We need to have more data to run this, but this is a very similar demographics to your district. I broke this up based on high gap, medium gap, and low gap. And what this is students who are starting off the year 2 years behind, students who are starting off between 1 year and 2 years, and students who are within a year behind to above. Now what it shows you is the students who use more EDGE get greater gains, regardless of how far they start back. I just point this out because from an equity and access issue, which is a big deal nowadays, right? People want to know, well, how are you helping all my students? A lot of programs, you know, sometimes even your core material is really geared towards these students. Your core is helping these students. But if you don't have an intervention, then these students have no access to gaining, right? And that becomes an equity and access issue because they're lost. They're lost. By 6th grade, the student is lost in math. These students who are 2 years behind, they're lost. I mean, I've seen so much data, I've analyzed it so much that there's no doubt in my mind. Those kids will only gain 0.3 years going into 7th grade. So essentially they just gain another 0.7 years gap.
Falling.
Yeah. Yes.
Quick question. So you have 0 to 4.4 hours. In what period of time are you talking about?
This one was a school, it did it throughout the whole year.
So that's just 4 hours more during the whole
Per
school
day?
year.
No, this is the whole year. So what happens, these students had 4 years of supplement, these had 11 plus. But these 11 plus could be 11 hours to 20 hours. It's just a range. So these students are like the one handout, Crystal, who had 11 to 20 hours. You know, you can see 0.5 years or 0.68. So it's just showing that you get a lot more gains.
So what's the recommended dosage for high gap kids?
Okay, so this is where we go into the next report. All right, so if you look at your handout, oh, do you have that has the instructions on it, the handout, right? Oh, okay, good. So this report, if you look at the second page, and I apologize, it's a little hard to see this. You can actually jump into any of your teachers, and we could jump into one of your teachers. You go into a teacher, and then I think I did Payne, and I selected Kathleen. I go to Ed 2.0, I click on current course usage. Now what's interesting, and actually let me just go into that class, because it's easier for me to show it in the live system. I go site administrators, I go to users, and this is step by step on your handout. Oops, just got logged out. Okay, so I'm in as a principal. I go to users, which is your teachers, and then I can select a teacher. Okay, so this is, yeah, I did Kathleen. I'll just pick her. I click on the little key that allows me to morph into her account as a teacher. I jump into Kathleen's account, and now I go to Edge 2.0. Okay, and again, this is on your handouts. All these steps are there. Current course usage. Now this is the one I want to show you that's really interesting. This is where I start saying you want to look at prioritization. Number of lessons to grade level. This student is only 3 lessons to get to grade level. The next student, Miguel, needs 24 lessons to get to grade level. This student needs 42 lessons to get to grade level, right? And so in a sense, this is my prioritization based on who needs more personalized learning time. If I sort it, I can click on this column, low to high, high to low. So these are the students that I would put priority on. And it actually tells you how many hours it's going to take. So this student here takes on average 25 minutes per lesson. And so this is the thing that's hard. You ask how many hours do you need, right? It depends. Some students take longer. Like this student here takes an average 25 minutes per lesson. This student takes 10 minutes per lesson. This student does 23 per lesson. Right? So some students just take longer. They're just, maybe they're repeating, they're more thoughtful, or it's just harder for them.
Or they're stuck on a lesson.
Or they get stuck, yeah.
So the hours to grade level indicates the average it would take for that
Student to get to grade, yeah.
If it's 12.9, the student actually took 25 minutes just for that one lesson. But
On average.
This is average. No, this is not one lesson. This student did
7 lessons.
30 lessons, but only 7 unique.
So
So they're doing a repeating a bunch, so they're getting low proficiency. So on average, it's a 25. At this rate, they need 13 hours to get to grade level.
I can tell you that student's stuck on a section challenge.
Okay.
Okay.
They have a percentage score that's less than 75.
So what do you do when you see that? This child's repeating and repeating? It could be they're
Checking.
stuck, but it could be they're just,
You check in on the lessons. Do you want to show them where under edit that they can look and see?
Do they really want to get down into the weeds like this? Okay.
Well, if we're looking at students that are
Yeah.
not meeting standards and we have to set our wrap-up.
Yeah.
They're stuck on.
So this student got stuck on section challenge 1. Yeah. So that what you could, it's a tough
I
call.
do the edit instead of this one.
Oh, okay.
Because then they can right there remove lessons they don't.
So I go to enroll, edit, and this is Kimberly. Oh, can you just do it directly
Yeah,
there?
you can do it from there. Over on the side, we can just look at Miguel and go to edit and go to math. And you can see how much time, so you can see the lessons that took a lot of time. So money counting took 6 tries. You can see section 1 challenge took 8 tries. Place value basics took 6 tries. So you can actually look in and see what are the lessons that they're spending a lot of time on. This is for the teachers. I mean, you're not going to go into every student and look at this, but
could you
teachers
sort those by groups? Could you find out which kids are struggling with place value?
You can't sort who takes the most time on that. We don't have that, but you can see.
I mean, I think the main thing here is initially on that page, you can start seeing tiers of students who need a certain amount of personalized learning, right? And then the thing is, I think your teachers need refreshers on how do I monitor my classes, because nothing is you can't just completely throw somebody on a system and expect it just to go. Kids will get stuck. Teachers need to get involved a little bit to look at it and say, okay, I'm just going to turn that lesson on. Like that one that Kimberly was getting stuck on an end of unit section challenge. So I would just turn that off. But that's something that they should get, a little extra hands-on use. Yeah. But the main thing here is what's interesting about this student, right? This student was a 4th grade class. Okay, look at the 4th grade class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 kindergarten lessons, right? Addition facts, hop back, decompose, addition. So this student was actually pretty low. 1st grade lessons, 2nd grade lessons. So you see that it's filling those gaps, those lowest ones first. And again, getting back to this page, this is a really good one to start seeing and trying to prioritize your students. But you know what? A lot of this is doable. I mean, I feel like over the course of the year, can you get 13 hours on? Can you get 6 hours? Yeah, if you've carved out for those maybe you don't have enough, well, you have enough devices now, right?
Everyone has one.
Okay. Well, the other thing is, if a teacher is doing something every Friday, they're doing flexible group, maybe some of those students get more time on the device. And another thing is, contests for weekend, right?
They can use it at home.
Yeah, they can use it at home. If students, maybe you go to those 5 students in your class and you say, all teachers, the ones who have the most priority, we want to send a letter home and recommend that the students use it at home. And maybe there's some kind of incentive.
I would imagine anyone over a certain number of hours, that could be an easy after-school intervention, because maybe it's just providing them space and time, and someone who knows how to go on and support them if they get stuck.
We have a lot of districts that use it for after school.
What's the connection to think together?
For after school program on our side, that's what we ask them to focus on, to actually do.
So how about, does anyone have any, what about you guys? I know some of the schools have been using it quite a bit. What are you guys doing? I think the top 3 is Payne and what are the other 2?
Well, Marymount has been using it.
Marymount. And what have you guys been doing to get time on task?
Say that one more time.
Oh, what the schools who've been using it the most, what have you guys been doing to get enough time on task?
So it's a part of their center.
Part of their center, okay.
So, and then it's a 20-minute agreement per day.
Okay. Okay.
Which is a center.
That's great. So you have built-in flexible center time every day.
What were you saying?
you know, Alicia came out and she trained some of the teachers, I think about 5 teachers, and then they trained other teachers, but just the response to EDGE has been very positive.
That's great.
So one thing I want to like kind of narrow our focus is, because I do it too, I tend to look at my 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, like what are we going to do? Some of the focus for this year should really be the lower grades. Like, so we don't have the what are we going to do in a couple of years in 4th grade, maybe not moved it, you know, up, but it's building from somewhere in math. And a lot of this isn't language based. So even, you know, just what UCI told us a few weeks ago, everyone says it's language based, she's like, it's not language based. It's conceptual based, and then if they don't have the basic skills from years past, the concept is going to go right over their head. So I think it's a good time to really start thinking, how are we going to funnel people into? The other concern I have is, and Jeff and I talk about this a lot, we have so many programs, I guarantee you there's not one administrator in this district, including myself, who could point to any of them that work, other than our teachers saying the kids really liked it,
Right.
and my kids did well with it. This is the only program that we have in the entire district that we took a year to do a study, and we had very good results. Now,
And I would,
you can close your ears.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's nothing else that could do it.
yeah.
But this is what we know can have a positive effect.
Well, you know what? There's no pain, there's no gain to some extent. Adam is a little painful, I will admit it, right? It's long. But with that pain, you get really good detailed, and that's what, so I just gotta think of it part of the prescription, right? It's just part of the instruction. It takes an hour and a half to 2 hours for 6th, 7th grade, and it's gonna get better, but once you have that, and it's good to explain to the students, and I think, you know what, a lot of students start seeing that their math, they feel good that, hey, I finally get it. But anyway, so this is, like I said, there's lots, I think it's good for you guys to get creative and say, how can I get more time in? We've seen some districts do really interesting things. I talked about the flexible grouping period over the weekend. You know, they get a movie ticket, a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, and they just have something queued up. They get some prizes built up. And that's something that's sort of funny. Maybe you do something like winter break. Whoever gets the most number of lessons done, and you run a report, and we'll help you if you need help. Alicia can help do that. Referee it, make sure we run it properly. Then, you know, maybe someone gets a prize, right? And so, just things, here's another one, EL intervention period. A lot of times, students who are in EL have a separate elective period. So that's not necessarily just to work on language, it could be also math. So that's another thing to keep in mind too.
Math language.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Principals, actually. Are your RSP and STC teachers, are they all accessing EDGE? Are they all using it?
If your teachers do not, if you have teachers that don't have rosters and therefore don't have clever access, let me know. I can make them an account. I can make them what's called a supervisor account, which allows them to access any student in the school by just entering the student, and it'll pull up their data. So that's really helpful, especially for RSP teachers, but if they can also give them a teacher account where they can create groups.
Well, I'm wondering, Elisa, would they need some extra training?
I mean, I can come in and, yeah.
I think like the way Marijuana RSP teacher, it's an incentive, you know, within her RSP time. The last 5, 10 minutes, you know, if they do well during their time, then we hop on.
Yes, sir.
So I have to give Alicia kudos, because our teachers at Crans really they didn't rake her over the coals, but they definitely shared their frustrations. And
just a couple.
But it was really kind of, I hate the word organic, I just really liked that it was pretty much her and I biting onto it and not letting go of, you know, our data says that we do go up 1% a year, but that's really not effective in the long term. And she's been hand-holding, and I've been reserving her on Tuesdays to really make it that priority of knowing the program well. And I think right now we're at the step of really her and I sitting together and looking at the data and then just kind of pushing along or dripping on them to move forward.
Yeah, and some of the teachers have definitely gotten on board that were not on board before.
There were definitely the rate comments already of, hey, I'm starting to like it. You know?
Good.
Yeah.
Rich, just by you saying that today, it's like, okay, but intuitiveness of the program, the edge and the creativity, that's what's coming back as far as feedback from the teachers, from the kids.
Yeah, and
So-
for the older students, this is a program that also works with adults.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's helpful too, to think
And it
about.
goes up through Algebra 1, by the way. So it's for enrichment too.
I will tell you our pre-study. Jeff Augustino several years ago bought an account for his niece because she was in high school failing math and doing horribly. And he spent a summer using Edge with her. And she went back that summer, the next year, and she was still using it. She did fine in math.
Yeah.
But he ran the reports on his niece. He's like, she had all these foundational holes. So we have some good experiences with it.
Yeah.
So the key, I believe, I might be then working on the monitoring of the tool.
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to not get enough time on task because you know how it is. The other thing is just be aware the time, even though you allocate 20 minutes a day, we only measure time on the lesson. So logging in, transitioning between lessons, there's a little bit of time that's lost, so your numbers will be a little lower. This is a great report. All teachers have this. When they log into the Edge 2.0, it says ranking. So this is something they can print out. This is the previous week. So on Monday, you print this out, and it shows you Christy had the most gold badges.
Don't worry about the gold. Kids
Yeah.
get too stuck on that.
Okay, then, most number of lessons completed,
Most new
lessons completed.
Most
So,
new lessons.
so it's a way to have a little ranking you could do.
And that's nice because your lowest kid in the class,
Can
who
still
might be
do
working the
this.
hardest, could get recognized.
Yes, exactly, because they're all working on just what's at their level.
Now, I did want to show you something else just for scaffolding. And again, this is something that Alicia will train your teachers to do. But remember, we talked about if I went to Adam, and let's say this isn't really, actually, I'll just look at something here.
It doesn't work. That's what's going to happen right now.
Is it? I'll do-
Everything's going so well. It's just loading. It's just the internet. Okay, somebody had a question or had a comment that we missed. Did you have? No, you're good? Okay.
All right.
So we're using this K, is that correct?
So, so the district purchased it for 4th through 6th, but we are saying go ahead and use it for the other grades because it
Even like
will.
minor ed, it's home helping now. Yeah.
Sorry, this is going really slow, but I was going to show you how to quickly scaffold for an upcoming lesson. Let's say we're going to do some stuff in time, or temperature, right? That's a good one. We want to do temperature. Our lesson's going to happen, and it's happening on Friday. So I tell my class, okay, temperature. I click on the magnifying glass on my class, and I say, look at this. These students,
Don't know how to.
Yeah.
Don't know what a thermometer is.
yeah. So I can actually select those students, and or whatever. I can select, and I click on homework, and now I can actually assign a lesson. Right? So I could put the title there, do this by Friday. My lesson will be called Due by Friday. Okay? And then I can actually select Math Edge, Khan Academy, or a custom URL. So if I type Math Edge, I could type temperature, math, measure temperature. I could go ahead and select that, drag that open over there, and then I can assign it. Right? So down below, those are all the students. I could take some out if I want. I could go to any of my classes. Just so you see, it's really easy to do. We're trying to make it simple, right?
So when the kids log in, they'll have the assignment?
Then it's called assignments. Yeah, because they have their normal Math Edge, and then they have teacher assignments, right? So it works across classes. So any teacher can assign. So if a student has 2 math classes or maybe separate pull-out RSP. Anyway, just be aware that's something, again, we have videos on that. Alicia can show you, but it's a way to teacher-directed supplemental lessons and then automatic. So I know I'm out of time, but there's a lot to it, and we want to make sure. Yes?
Just because you're
Yeah.
teaching us one little
Yeah.
bit so that we can support that. Can you go back again and tell us how did you
Sure.
identify the students?
Yeah, so this is what's cool about this is on on any tab,
So where were you?
I can go anywhere on those 44 subtests, right? I can even do it on the main page. We have check boxes on the left. So anytime you're looking at your data, you can always check the box, the homework box next to the student and say make assignment. So however I want to do it, I can do it. And I'm sorry, I don't know why it's going so slow.
But
You see
you were under
students'
which
homework?
No.
I could check any of them, but what I did was I clicked on the magnifying glass, right? The magnifying glass.
How did you even get to this page? That's what I.
Yeah, so on Adam, normally it shows you the summary scores, which is just summative. I actually drilled down to one of the specific tabs, just like you do on the average skills tab. So I said, I'm going to take a look at measurement, and now it shows me the individual subtests, right? And now, yeah, I apologize, I went a little fast there.
I see now.
So now if I go to length, weight, capacity, whatever, I click on weight, the magnifying glass, and now it breaks my students out.
Okay, got it.
All these students are working on the concept of width. These students are working on customary units, and so I could break that out. But again, this is all stuff that Alicia can cover in an hour training, or longer if you have it. But there's a lot.
Question.
Yes.
I know the program says K7, that as a district we're using it all the way to
Yeah, I'll come in.
Yeah.
Are we see the 8th grade scores in the system?
What happens is our grade level criterion stops at 7th grade. So even though the 8th graders are using it, the highest scores in Adam are 7.9. But you know what? It still covers a lot of the concepts, and also most of the students are low anyway.
For CST, they did that major study years ago, and they were talking about kids who took algebra in 8th grade. If they didn't score nearly maxing out advance, they didn't do well in algebra 2. So even your highest students in 8th grade have some holes that you will never see. But when they get to algebra 2
Oh, that's interesting.
and things like that, they're going to rear their head, and that kid who you really think might get into a top tier college may not.
Or you may get in, who's gonna struggle.
Correct, because math gets you in, writing keeps you in. When you go to college, so it won't hurt any of them of the population we have.
Okay. All right. I know we've gone over, so thank you so much.
I will come back.
Yeah. Definitely take advantage of Alicia.
So I want to get a temperature check real quick. Lily and I were talking. We don't dedicate enough time to this, so I'd like to see if you're interested, as often as Alicia can, come out to our principals meetings once a month if they can, just for a chunk, to keep going deeper in this.
Yes.
Because I'm going to tell you, yes. Well,
Yeah, there's a lot.
I will bet you, if I were to add up your site budgets of what you're spending on all these other things, you would have extra money to spend on other things if you weren't buying duplicate programs. GG Math,
Yes. It's very expensive.
Lexia, when we talk about,
IXL. I don't know if you guys use
Oh,
that.
oh,
That's
yeah,
one
we
that's
do.
really easy. But that's really
we do
grade level.
IXL,
Grade
XLI, you name it, we do it. And I know it's because it's harder to monitor now because teachers can just access them. But if we make this the focus, you start shifting a good number of those people off of that, and then your resources go a lot further. Because now you can use that money for other high needs.
Well, besides that though, it's targeted intervention and instruction
Yeah.
based on the assessments we're already using. And I think that's gotta be one of the biggest selling.
I think the big thing to really point out to the teachers, if you get pushback, is you have to say, look, we have tier 2 students, right, in terms of RTI. How are we addressing tier 2 students in tier 1? Because the reality is all schools across the country have too many kids. It's not 15% tier 2.
No.
It's 65%, maybe even 75% who are tier 2. So the question is this program you want to use going to help my high gap kids who are 2 years behind? Like that's a problem. Like IXL, not that I know that much about it, but I know it really makes sense. People say, oh, I want some supplemental help to help grade level standard 4.2, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't go,
It doesn't
it helps
benchmark.
these kids.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe some of those, but it doesn't help. So that's the thing to always ask yourself. Look at our data. how are we helping our high gap kids?
Well, to me, the other thing too is that each one of the different programs has a separate diagnostic within it. And we're trying to follow 3 and 4 different diagnostics.
Yes.
And yet, the one that is our primary as a district, we're not really using that.
So that's.
And then it becomes a summative instead of a diagnostic.
Yeah.
I don't want to say. Yeah, one of the things we can decide is that those programs will no longer be eligible for LCAT funding. So if you guys want to pay for it, you have to figure out how to use
Well, it's too late for it.
other means.
Oh, there's this
But-
year,
It's time.
But here's the thing, you know, little things, what if at your Friday assembly, you gave out, you know how you do rewards for other things? What if you gave out awards for the kids who did the most lessons? You know why? I guarantee you it probably won't be your highest kids all the time, and a lot of times those kids aren't recognized, and that can have a whole climate impact too. You know, I think my hope is that we will make it important. Because people will find that great thing on Saturday morning while they're scourging the internet or talking to their friend over breakfast. Well, we use this in my school, and we can't point to anything that works. Honestly, when we talked about our language arts scores and our math scores this year, the growth, a lot of us had a hard time figuring out why we grew in math. That's not a good place to be. You know, because you can't replicate it if you don't know why. So,
All right.
thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
And then I can come out.
Let's take a, we went to our data reflection time, which I'm okay with, because this is very important.
I
and I'd
had a
like to
training
allocate
this
more time
afternoon
to
that
hear
I
this.
wasn't on my
Let's take
schedule,
a quick
and they
5
canceled
minute only break.
So,
And we'll come back and we'll,
it worked out.
I'm gonna set your date on the calendar if you can pick it up as you walk in.
In November. Yeah, we are already ready. Thank you so much for having set up our after-school people,
Oh, good.
John Cano and Tisa.
Oh, yes,
Because they
yes,
were-
yes.